Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Chris Cade. I've been with WIN-911 for about 2 years now, and I do work in tech support. So if you ever open a tech support ticket with us, there's a good chance you may have talked to me before. And today we're going to be talking about InTouch Edge, a couple of new features with the custom links that you can add to your alarms. So, for example, you could put a URL in there or image, but probably URL would be best. And when the alarm comes in, you can actually tap that URL, take you to something like maybe your knowledge bases or your solutions. And I'll show you an example of that. So this will be our agenda for today, and we'll start off with how to bring in the alarms and whether or not to use subscriptions or alarm imports. Either way works fine. And then we have a new feature in Log Viewer where you can now export your alarms. You can export the history of all the alarms that came into Log Viewer, which is, I think, a pretty nifty new feature. So firstly, we'll talk about is the subscription filters and the different ways to be able to do that. Next, we'll be talking about how to import if you'd like. With method one, these are the options that you have. Probably the most common is to select a worksheet number, or you could do a specific message, or even select specific tag names if you'd like. There's also a way of bringing in by priority and other selections as well, specific selections if you'd like. And here we get to see an example of how the groupings work. So when it comes to tag names, worksheets with messages, these are all and statements, so they're all included. But once you start getting down into the tag names, they're or statements. So it would be either fault or conval. But yes, you can group all the various headers together if you like. The message, worksheet, the messages, the tag names, the priorities, and the selections. There's also a way of doing it between a range of group worksheet numbers, which is a pretty nifty feature. Perhaps you're looking for several worksheets, so you could do a range there if you'd like. You can group them together. And then there's the option of doing the contains or does not contain. So here we're an example of using a wildcard to bring in the tank level, or any alarms with the word level in it. And here we have an example again of doing it by tag name. And you're welcome to use either the does not contain or contains. In this case, it's a wildcard, and again, the start we'll bring in anything with the word drive in it. And then, of course, our priority range. We can select the range between whatever fits your needs there, or you can do a specific priority if you'd like, or just all priorities. And then last but not least, there is the specific selections. Perhaps you're just looking for selections to bring in your alarms rather than worksheets or priority. Of course, you can always use a mixture of all of them if you like. And again, these are all and statements. So it'd be the worksheet and the messages and the tag names and the priorities. And then labels is a way of grouping your alarms together. It's very nifty if you're using the advanced tactics and strategies. Otherwise, it's not really necessary. It's more for organizational purposes if you're just using our basic license or our interactive license. You can still add labels, but it's really just organizational in that case, unless you're using the advanced tactic. So here we have an example of subscription routes. So once you create these subscriptions, you have to now move them to a route. And the way these routes work is based on ranks. So in this case, the alarm would first check the subscription created for technicians. If the alarm was in a filter, or if the filter caught that alarm, then it would use the technician strategy. If the alarm did not catch any filters in the first subscription, then it moves on to the second one. and it will check that, and if it finds the filter there, then it will move on to the operator strategy. And again, if it was not caught in this filter or this description, then it moves on down to engineers and would use the engineer strategy. If the alarm wasn't caught in any filters, then it would not appear in WIN-911 and there would be no notification for it. So this will be a way of, perhaps you have thousands of alarms in your SCADA, yet you only want WIN-911 to notify on certain ones. And this is how it's done. So yeah, the process, the first step is to create your subscription. So that's back up here in our module. So we'd go to subscriptions, create the subscription there. That's where we were seeing the filters before, whether we want to bring it in by worksheet or specific names or priority. Once it's created, then it's available for selection in these drop downs. And you just hit the plus button to add new ranks, select your subscription, and set a strategy for it. And in the WIN-911 world, a subscription is a way to bring in the alarms. The strategy is the policy of what you want the alarms to do. And the strategy is what in turn triggers the tactic, which is the call out list. And then we do advise creating a catch-all. Usually what I'll do is I'll create, in this situation, I might create a rank 4, and I would say bring in all alarms, and then I would set it to the do not notify strategy. And that way I could still see the alarm appear in log viewer if I need to, but it won't notify anyone. So it's a good way for troubleshooting. If you're not bringing in the alarms that you want, it's a good way to see if that's catching it. And here we have the example. All right, so with our method 2, which is just importing your alarms, it's pretty straightforward. We go to alarming. It may say InTouch ME, but with nowadays it should say InTouch Edge. And then we go to imports. We'll click we'll have to check box the little I understand for confirmation. Click next. And then from there, it's just a matter of browsing to your JSON file. And in most cases, it's going to be under the CA users, whatever username you logged in with, where you created your project, your documents, and then InTouch. What will happen is once it reads the file, it's going to start giving you all the available tags, and you could choose to add them all if you want to, or you could just select different ones and choose to add different selections. Or if you don't like what you put in there, you can always select the box over here and remove them out of the way. Once you've finished that, you would click next and get to the finished page here. All right, so now we're going to move on to the new features. And so one of the features they've added is that you can put a URL with a tag under a custom field, and in my scenario, I just put a link to our KB solutions. And so when the alarm is triggered and the operator receives the alarm on their mobile device with the WIN-911 mobile app, once they tap into the alarm and see the details, there will be an option for attachments. And from there, they would see their URL to take them to where they need to go. So the first thing you have to do is you have to go into your project settings under the options and set how many custom fields you want to provide. In this example, we have 2. In my example, I really only made 1, but you can have them for all of them if you like. And then once you go to your project sheet where you create your alarms, you'll see an option for the custom field 1 or 2. And then you can add your URL there. It could be even an image, like maybe you're hosting an image server and you want some fancy graphics in there. You can always do something like that as well. And then in WIN-911, we would go to our alarming section, to the InTouch Edge, and to the project details, and select how many custom fields we want to use. We can use up to 10. And then again, this is only for the mobile notifier. So in your mobile device, there you would go to the alarm details you go to settings first, go to the alarm details, and then add your attachments as available for display. It should pop up here. And then now once you get the alarm, you tap into it to see the alarm details, and it'll show you the URL. Another new feature we added to log viewers, now you can export your alarms, all your historical data. So if you ever uncheck the auto update, and when you do, you see a date range option, and you can select to see historical data that way. That's always been the way to do it in the past. Now you can just export to a CSV file or PDF or XLS. And it is supported across view modes, so you get alarms, historical alarms, and notifications. And this is a quick example of what it'll look like for PDF. So these are the health alarms that went off. This is more from a notification view. And that is our show. So now I'm going to go ahead and bring over the live demo. And so the first thing we mentioned was going into the project, and we would go to the options, and we would set how many custom fields we want. And so we could have up to 10. Right now I just chose 1. And so what it added for me was a column now for custom 01. If I selected 10, then I would just see more columns there. I would see like custom 1, custom 2, 3, 4, and so on. And I could just add multiple attachments, or I could do something really fancy like a URL with a graphic, or pretty much whatever you want. You can be very creative there. And so again, the first step is we would go into our options and set our custom field, how many custom fields we want. Once that's set, we get our custom field here. And for example, I just put in the URL to our solutions page. And now let's go to WIN-911. And if we if we are going to alarming, InTouch Edge, our projects, we select our node, this page becomes populated. And then if we edit the page, we can select all the custom options if we want. In my example, I'm only using 1, so I'm just going to select 1 for now. So we'll exit out of here. And then now I'm going to go back to, I'm going to step back a bit and show you the subscriptions. So here's where we would actually create our subscriptions. And this is the default that we have for all alarms. It comes with the system. And so if I'm going to create a new subscription, I'll hit my plus sign, give it a name. And maybe in this case, I just want to bring in sheet 1, so I'm just going to name it sheet 1. Here's where I can specify my sheet number if I wanted to. Or I could do my range if I'd like. But in my example or my test, I only have 1 sheet at the moment. But perhaps you wanted to do a sheet range. Maybe you just wanted like between certain numbers or certain sheets. You don't want every sheet in your system, so that's an option. I'll go ahead and set mine for 1. And perhaps I want to bring in certain messages. I have an option for contains, do not contains, or regular expression. For now, I want all messages. And I can bring in specific tag names if I like. I have the same options with the regular expression, contains or does not contain. And again, when you add these, it's going to be an or statement. So it's going to be something like pump or level or another one. So what that kind of means is that it's more of a, it's just looking for these in an or fashion. If it finds pump, then that's fine. It's not going to care about level or the other one. I'm sorry, That's not correct. It would find pump. If you see pump, it would bring up pump. Or if you see level, it will bring in level. Or if it finds something else that you put in here, it'd basically be looking for those tag names. And I'm going to switch mine back to all tags for now. And then, of course, we can do the specific priority range if we like. Or sorry, specific priority. Or we can choose a priority range. And again, we have the slider bars to choose what range we want. Or we can just manually input them here. But for now, I will choose all priorities. And then labels. I'm sorry, selections is again, same way. You can add multiple selections if you want, or all selections. And then labels is a way of grouping the alarms together, which is really for the advanced tactic. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save this. And now that I actually have a subscription, now I have to go put it towards a subscription route. And for that, we go to Alarming, InTouch, and Projects. We would highlight our node if it wasn't already selected. Usually it would show it's like a blank page here, and then we would have to select our node first, go to our routes. And right now I'm using the default all alarms, but I'm going to change this to my sheet 1, set it to my strategy, and then I could do my catch-all if I wanted, the all alarms, and point it to the do not notify. And so we'll save that. And then the second option was to import the alarms, where we could go to import. We click our I understand box, hit next. And then we would browse to our file, in which this case it's going to be a very long path. So see users, documents, InTouch, projects, WIN-911 is my project name, and then database, and it is the tag JSON file that you want. I've already imported these, so I'm not sure what's going to happen here. It looks like it still gave me one of my options. This is the ones that I have not imported yet. And I've already imported another one, so that didn't show up as my selection, but I could add all if I wanted to, or select it and remove certain ones, or add them all, or remove them all. And for now, I'm not going to import this one because I wanted to show you the difference between how we bring in alarms. So I'm going to just back out of this for now. But in the end result, it will show up under our tags here. And same is true where when you import a tag, it still needs to follow the strategy and tactic. And so we would have to go to our alarm section and tell it what strategy to use. And so in this case, the alarm triggers the strategy, and the strategy will trigger the tactic. And if we follow this path, I'll go to my strategies and maintenance. And so the strategy would trigger the tactic, the call out list. If there's any state change, it'll re-notify me. And then if it becomes acknowledged, it will stop the strategy, it will stop calling people. So if we follow this, go start our tactic. And right now I just have myself as a mobile device, but I'm more than welcome to add several people. So let's just say for a minute that I do add several people. So in this scenario, we can kind of use the delay after as an escalation if we like. Perhaps I always want to get the alarm first and give me a chance to acknowledge. So maybe I'll give myself 10 minutes. If I don't acknowledge within 10 minutes, then I'll move to Brian. I could do the same there, give him 10 minutes to acknowledge, and keep going down the list as an escalation. Another common escalation is just using it on the last person. So let's set these to 0. Set these to 0. And in this scenario, everyone will get the alarm almost at the same time since it's mobile and email. And then here I could put in like 30 minutes, give it a couple of repeats. And so what would happen is everyone gets an email. If no one acknowledged after 30 minutes, then we all get a notification again, and we'll do that up to 5 times. I could set it up to 10 times. And to stop this whole process is that stop strategy condition that when the alarm's acknowledged. And so at some point, if one of us acknowledge, it stops that and resets it. It won't keep bugging us every 30 minutes. But this is a good way of doing an escalation, or making sure that people see the message and it's resending the message. I'm going to cancel that. Okay, and so now we have our log viewer. And right now it looks like I do have a couple of things on alarm. Probably because it's not started. So let's start our project. Okay. We are going to hit up log viewer here. So now that I've started my project, my health alarm is ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge that. So now if I trip one of my alarms, I only have 2. I have an analog and a digital here. This is the one that I have set up for my custom format, or for my custom field. So if I trip this alarm and it goes to my mobile, I will be able to see the attachment in there. So right now it's on my mobile device, and I'm going to pop in a screenshot real quick, and hopefully y'all can see this. This is what it would look like on my screen. And this is after I've tapped into the alarm to see the details of it. And you'll see down here, above the attachments, this is where the URL is going to come in. Let's circle it here. So you could add URLs to all your alarms if you like. And you can tap on that URL and it actually works. It takes me out to Safari on my iPhone, and I'm able to see that web page and check for solutions if I like. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge this on my mobile device, which is my favorite notifier, by the way. It's probably the easiest one to use. And of course, my tank level here. Okay. Went ahead and acknowledge that one. I'll reset it back to 0. Okay, and then the last thing I'd like to show you is the export feature. And so in the past, we've always had to uncheck this box to see historical data. We could set the date range and choose what we wanted to see. But now we can just hit our export button, save it somewhere. Save it to the desktop for now. Oh, sorry, one thing I meant to show you is the different options. So I've saved the first one as an Excel spreadsheet, but I kind of prefer PDF, so I'm going to choose PDF. There's also the option of the CSV file if you like. So I'm going to save another copy of it, put it on my desktop here. Unfortunately, I don't have a PDF viewer on here. I'll tell you what, I will just copy it to my other machine real quick, and you'll be able to see it. Bear with me just a minute. All right, let's get this show on the road. So now I've copied it to a machine where I actually have a PDF viewer. So if we double click on that, we'll tell it to open with the reader. Okay, so I must have did that wrong, I apologize. I think we actually do have to set the data we want. So we would actually uncheck this, set our date range, and then export. So it exports what we want to see. My apologies for that. So we could set our date range to something in the past if we like. Refresh, and then let's export that to PDF. I'll save that. I need to copy it to my machine here. Let's set it. There we go. So now we actually see the data that we're looking for, the historical data. Looks like the same is true if we wanted notifications. So if we go back and we just wanted to see the notification tab, we would have to actually swap to this notification tab, set our date range for what we want, export it. And this time I'm just going to call it, well, it already renamed itself for notifications. So let's save that. I'll get it copied over. And now we get to see our notifications. Okay, well, I thank everyone for joining. We really appreciate you taking the time. It's much appreciated, and hope you will join our next one, and hopefully you found this informative, and hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day.